Hi, my name is Jay Jefferson, and I am a instructor with the Construction Project Management Program at Cal State Dominguez, and we're very excited to hear you today. We've got a very special guest, Debbie Miller, who's going to be talking to us about her role as a special inspector, lead special inspector at LAX.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. We're going to be asking you a series of questions, and there's so much about your career that is so interesting, especially being a woman in construction. And feel free to just elaborate on any of the questions that we ask, okay?
Yes.
All right, so why don't we start by, first of all, everybody, just for your information, Debbie is a senior airport construction inspector for LAX. And so obviously it wasn't easy to get to that position. So Debbie, tell us a little bit about your professional experience and your background.
I came to inspection by starting with the city 21 years ago in the Department of Public Works. I was a clerk for all the inspectors for public works that would take care of, streets, curb and gutter, recreation centers being built, fire stations being built, major storm drains and rebuilds and the like. I learned how to read plans from them, and they had an initiative to get more women into the assistant inspector program, which would be the equivalent of an apprenticeship. So I couldn't even have imagined myself doing it, but they did. They said, no, we look how quickly you take to all the stuff that, and no, just you can do it. Go try. Well, they had a hiring freeze, so I didn't get hired. But I said, I've already decided to do this. I went looking for another way to train, and I found operating engineers. Local 12 has an apprenticeship for construction inspection. You learn through Rio Hondo, you get college credits to learn construction inspection materials control. So I learned soil classification and pounding a Proctor point, operation of a Newt gauge, and then I got ACI Field Tech 1 certified at the union, and then Twining Laboratories picked me up as an apprentice with just the minimum of skill. It was me. I tell you how I took that test. I found it and I took it, and I came out #1 on the list.
Wow, awesome.
I was a woman in my mid-30s, and I took that test to become an apprentice with Local 12. All those guys learned, they were applying to be crane operators and crane mechanics and survey and heavy equipment operators. And then my apprenticeship for construction inspection, all of us took the same entry test. And I came out #1 on that list. And I just found it by a fluke the month before. And I got 10 points for being a United States Army veteran. So that's what really put me right at the top of the list, #1 on the list. And so I went through a couple classes for 4 months, learning soils and ACI field tech stuff. And then Twining Laboratories picked me up and immediately set me out just pulling cylinders every day. Wherever a deputy inspector would be working, I'd be out there to pull cylinders for them. So I had that Field Tech 1 license. And the more you're around it, the more you can learn. And then I took a few more licenses to get an ICC for concrete. And then I took a masonry one. I got that one. Then the city of LA was hiring again, and I took that test and I did it. I came back as a full inspector, and then I went straight to the airport. And while I was with Twining, I did OSHPOD hospital work. I did DSA inspection work for the high schools that were all being built throughout Southern California. And then also I did CALTRANS sampling. I worked out on the freeways in the middle of the weekends, in the middle of those closures out there. That was me driving a big box truck with, I became a lead inspector, and I would learn how to pull samples out of that rapid set concrete and accelerated mixes they were putting in freeway traffic. and I could run the braking equipment that to test the flexural strength. And it was my job to tell the Caltrans inspector that the road could be picked up and the cars could start driving on it. And then the city test came along and I got hired by the city. And then I was working on runway 25 left out there, and I was supervising all the sampling of everything going into runway 25 left, all that paving mix and slip form paving. And then next thing I know, I'm doing taxiways, and I learned how to do airfield lighting and electrical, because when you work for the city, you're jack of all trades. You just keep learning, and they say, okay, I need you to go watch this bid item on the contract. Go pick up the plans and specs and just figure that out. And away you go. and I kept up somehow, some way. I kept up,
Right.
and it's been an adventure of my life. 12 years in, I finally took the exam to be a senior inspector, and I did it. I did it. And I'm the first woman to be promoted into the position of senior inspector at the airport. There's been other women that transferred in, but I was the first woman to be promoted into it. And I've taken the test to be a principal inspector. And you can say, if I make it, I will be the first woman to be promoted into that level of supervision in the construction inspection division at the airport. And I wouldn't have had that kind of confidence in myself if I hadn't stepped back and done the personal inventory and looked at what education I needed to be able to do those level of management things and to fulfill that role. And and that's why I'm so happy to do this with you, Jay, because you entered, with your program at Cal State, Dominguez Hills, and I made it to class. I worked overtime at the airport and I'd make it through traffic, but I showed up because it meant that much to me. And I could see myself changing every single week.
It does my heart good to get that type of feedback from students that have received so much from the program.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that.
I needed the education, and I was so receptive to it. And you put some younger women in the class from Swinnerton and from CW Driver, and it helped me a lot to look at how confident they were. And I looked at these younger women and I saw that I was doing exactly the same things that they were, but I didn't recognize that I was handling the level of responsibility that those younger women were handling. And it made me realize, wow, I really do a whole lot more than I think that I do. And because I learned the teamwork and all the jobs of construction management and more of the language of it, I recognized what I had already known was there, but I could, but it clarified it to me.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Well, that must be a really great feeling. I mean, you have achieved so much, and 21 years is really not a lot of time in the bigger scheme of things. So you must really feel good about that.
I pushed really hard, Jay.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me something. What would you give? What type of advice would you, if you look back and you had to actually have a conversation with yourself? What type of advice would you give your younger self?
Stop listening to what everybody else is saying behind your back. Stop worrying what everybody else thinks about you. It just ruins your confidence. It ruins what you know to be true. It's negativity, and it just destroyed a positive movement forward. I listened to I just listened to what other people had to say that was negative too often.
Right.
You got to learn to shut that out and say, I don't care what other people think. This is my pathway. I know something about this, and I don't have to prove it to anybody. That'd be the other thing. Yeah. Stop trying to prove it. Mm-hmm. You don't work so hard at trying to prove it to everybody that you belong there. Yeah. That was detrimental to myself.
Boy, those are those are some great words right there. That's good advice for, I think, for any young person that's trying to work their way up in their career.
Yeah.
So you've achieved so much within the 21 years. What do you think? And you named some of the certifications that you received. When I look at your resume, you've got a very powerful resume. What stands out in your mind in terms of your successes in your profession?
My supervisor, the different supervisors that I've had at the airport itself, also at Twining. I think that a lot of the people in the industry will know the name Boris Stein at Twining Laboratories for his contributions into the concrete industry in Southern California.
Okay.
I worked directly for Boris, and he put me in positions of a responsibility that I wouldn't have thought of myself being in, but he just put me in them, and he kept pushing me. And it was because of him giving me responsibilities that I hadn't have thought of before and being successful in it because of his constant pushing. And then once I got to the city and started working for a couple of different supervisors, it was them that always made sure that I was in the position to be contributing and not off to the side, which admittedly, it was tough for people to see me doing the role that I'd been hired to do, for certain. And those supervisors always made sure that I was put into the position to be doing what I was paid to be doing. And what you every single day you grow into a job, with whether you want to or not, you're going to grow a little bit more because of every experience. And because I was at the airport, I was on some of the largest construction projects in the state of California. Runway 25 left was 750 million. That was the very first project I was on as a construction inspector at LAX. And then moving on to that one, another 500 million for another taxiway, and then go inside of the buildings. And I started to learn elevators and hydraulics, and then be part of the roadway improvements. There's another $150 million. Just every single minute they're clicking off money over there. And I got experience in civil constructions and structural hydrology for piping and thermal dynamics and how to close up thermal outsides of buildings. I learned to do everything because there's always something going on at LAX. It's always something.
Right. It's amazing that, what you're saying about having people in your corner. And I think that's so important when you think about management opportunities,
Right.
And how you get there, is having people in your corner that are very supportive. And so, boy, that's great.
Yeah.
So, you've had to have had a number of challenges in your career that you could probably talk all day about. But can you tell me about one major challenge that stands out in your mind, and how you overcame it and what lessons you learned from it?
Believing in myself. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
Your brain will lie to you a lot as you're growing into yourself, telling you that you can't do things or you're not good enough to do that. And it as you grow older, you learn how to stop believing that kind of negative message to yourself and saying, yes, I do know how to do it. Yes, I can do it. And then believe it in myself that I'm doing a good job. That was a hard challenge. And I think that you grow into it through steps by being able to hit a milestone and look back and say, oh, wow, look what I did learn. I did do all these good things. And, and stop measuring myself as though I did all these negatives, and stop And then you know, look, no, I did all this good stuff too. You talk yourself through it. That's how you get through believing in yourself, and then also educating yourself. Just as I said, once I started to learn what everybody's particular job was in the construction management, and how the team worked and the vernacular to use, I understood all the conversations that were going on around me. And then I started to realize that I knew a whole lot more than I had given myself credit for. And then you really start to believe in yourself.
Diversity in the workplace is a hot topic right now.
Sure.
And you're probably like in the center of all that. How have you seen the landscape change? Have you seen more women and
Yes.
and minorities,
Yes.
in your work environment?
Yes. I used to be the only woman around, you know what I mean? In a group of 100 people, I'd be the only woman out there, and you just get used to that. You find a way to acclimate. But now I go out onto a job site, like when I was on Midfield Satellite Concourse, they're calling it the Bradley Gates West. I was tunnel crew. We built one of the tunnels that goes underneath the taxiways. I was lead on that. I never saw so many women apprentices out there, carpenters, electrical, a lot of electrical, and doing low voltage piping. So it's smaller conduit runs and things like that, but still, and then some plumbers and carpenters and laborers, and they all are so excited to see me. Oh, Miss Debbie. I'm like Aunt Debbie out there. I mean, I'm 54 now, and these are young apprentice women, and Miss Debbie, and I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled.
So Auntie Debbie, yes. Okay. Oh boy, that's awesome. And that's good to hear too. I'm so glad to hear that. Okay, so our program continues, right?
Yes.
We try to do our best to crank out alumni. I saw some statistics in the industry recently that the demand for CM is very high. The baby boomers are checking out, 3 on a mule, and they can't seem to hire people fast enough. So as we develop and work through our, getting our students out to the workforce, what recommendations or advice would you have to our students as they become graduates and move out into the industry?
You better read if you want to go into public works contracting, read the contract, every single bit of it, the general conditions, the project requirements, and the special conditions. When that project is out to bid, you need to understand how that bid works. Every single detail of working at a public works project, in particular, where the big money's at LAX. If you want to go into those big, huge projects with the biggest contractors, Clark, McCarthy, PCL, Turner, Flatiron, Griffith, Sully Miller, every big boy out there, you need to understand public works contracting. You need to understand the Green Book. You need to be familiar with the Green Book. That is what you are contracting to. That is what your code is. Understand whose jurisdiction has authority over your plan set. There are multiple jurisdictions that have authority over your plans. And when you bid on a contract, you need to understand every different jurisdiction having authority. And that is where you will be the king of construction management team, because those are the things that cost the most money and can change the schedule the most. Interaction between jurisdictions having authority over your public works contracts, understanding the Green Book, and understanding all details of a construction project. How to do change management, how to quantify accurately using the Green Book standards.
Yeah, and those bid documents, and I could imagine on a project, the types of sizes of projects that you're talking about, those bid documents are going to be very intimidating.
They are. But I started out a clerk typist, and I understand a public works construction project for $1.5 billion. You can do it too. All it takes is sitting down and reading it. It's in
Yeah.
plain language.
Mhm. Yeah. So plan reading is essential. Plan reading, and it sounds like some of the other skills you're talking
It
about,
can't be
maybe
skipped
schedule.
over. It cannot be skipped over. It can't be substituted.
So tell us, what type of sacrifices have you had to make to get where you are? You know, regardless if it was personal or professional, what do you see as some of your major sacrifices?
Working night shift,
Hmm.
working hours that 16-hour shifts, pushing myself through it a lot. I physically hurt myself a lot with concrete work, shoveling, paving mixes, lugging around a nuke gauge and swinging sledgehammers, to drill the pilot hole for the nuke gauge in that big lead case. I should have asked for help more and didn't. And then just pushing yourself through that pain, standing in a lot of heat, watching concrete go in. I drove a lot of hours on the roadways as an apprentice, going to batch plants out in the middle of nowhere at 4 o'clock in the morning, so that you could watch the, if you're going to watch the trucks go out for a 6 a.m. pour at a hospital, you got to be at the batch plant at 4 a.m. to start watching them light up. So
Yeah.
I had to figure out childcare on the fly. I was a single mother for a great deal of my career. To be able to go to work in the middle of the night out on the freeways.
What is the most important thing you've learned about leadership?
Teaching.
Okay.
You got to teach everybody to do the job so that you can be available for the entire team. You got to teach. You got to be ready to and teach, or they can't be independent. Whoever is assigned to you, be flexible. Figure it's okay to make a mistake as long as you know how to right the ship, right? You're gonna make a decision, make it. If it's the wrong decision, fix it.
Yeah.
I've learned how to speak to people better. How it took me a while. People perceive me as having inappropriate tones to my voice or hurriedness to me. I had to learn to speak correctly, to communicate correctly. I've learned how to write evaluations that I look for the most positive things first. And then we only talk about what we need to improve after that.
That is a challenge when you're an inspector, especially coming across, communicating properly, not being offensive. Those are all such important skills.
Yes. You have to tell somebody that they're doing something that doesn't meet the plans, doesn't meet the specifications.
Yeah.
And it's going to cost them $72,000 because of how they've not planned, You have to say that the right way.
Yeah.
Standing out there on 1,000-yard pour, and we're placing concrete and the batch plant breaks down, and we're getting a cold joint in the footing right where we have rebar crossing. And you got to tell them they got to stop. Yeah. What is a 1,000-yard pour cost? And wow. And then you got to come back through. You got to hold your ground until they look. You got to come out and core this. I'm not approving you to go forward. You have to say that the right way. Yeah. That is a schedule that needed to be met, that every trade was waiting their turn to get into that area. That's a milestone mover when you got to stop 1,000-yard pour and say no. That was hard.
Oh, I'm sure.
that, and then when people don't even realize that they're doing it wrong and they're so positive that they're right, you got to find a way to get them to see the bigger picture and say, look, let's be a team together on this. We have to make an improvement to this right here. Whatever it is that we're not agreeing about, let's be a team on this one thing, and we'll move this forward. I've learned how to speak in that way.
Yeah.
Through very hard situations with a lot of money riding on it, with a lot of people standing there staring at you, waiting for you to say the right thing.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That kind of moves us. That's a great segue, when you talked about team and working together, the more modern delivery methods like CM at risk and progressive design build, they allow that. Have you had the opportunity to work on some of those type of delivery methods?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've done a couple of CMARs. Absolutely. Where it was all a lot of task orders all pulled together. Two different of those. Several design builds, but I don't know that they were progressive design build, but they certainly were all design build. I'd say 5 of those. And then what we have going on with the automated people mover and the car rental facility that's out on Aviation Boulevard, those are triple Ps, public-private partnerships.
Right.
But the caveat to it, Jay, is that the airport is not written into the QA. They have their own QA QC program, and even though we are an owner, we're not using our quality assurance, the construction inspection division, on that progress. So the only way that we get to control that construction is our ability to control the area closures and our agreements for construction traffic, which is what I get to do.
Yeah.
I work with that big triple P to implement the safety of the construction to keep the airport operational around the building of that people mover, the 2.5 mile train.
Right.
So, yeah. So if you went to the design builds I've been on was that the Bradley West gates. Now we called it the Midfield Satellite Concourse, which was all the tunnels and building the taxiways back over it, all the baggage handling system improvements. That was design build. Currently we have one that's a very interesting one. 2 owners, the Department of Department of Water and Power, and the Department of the Airport are joining together and have hired a design build contractor to build a receiving station. We're bringing in scatter goods line, and we're stepping that down and building a transmission line for 34.5 kV across our runway system to be able to power up the entire airport. Right. And that's a design build.
Okay.
So, yeah. but we are all on a basis of a design is all off of Department of Water Power's proprietary design contract, all of their standards of build and specifications.
Well, Debbie, would you like to say anything as we close? I mean, I really appreciate your transparency and just thank you for the conversation. Would you like to say, do you have any closing remarks?
I'm so glad that I took the time to inventory my life and find out what I needed to move forward. And then when I committed myself to it, I found the people that you bring into your program, those younger women that were presenters for different parts of the teamwork, like from Swinnerton and CW Driver, showing me how to be a more confident person. I found that in your program. I'm so glad that I just said, I'm going to go do that. And I put my money down and committed myself to it. And then it didn't matter. I got hurt at work and had to miss a little bit, but I got right back in there and finished.
Mhm.
It would have been easy to quit, especially with
Yeah.
COVID and the video, being able to use Zoom to attend class and always working long hours at work. It would have been real easy to quit. Don't quit, finish it.
And so as we close, I just want to remind you all to go to our website where you can get more information about our program and how to sign up.